gotta get uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Not so anonymous with DJ
There's some help.
Aresta.
It ain't on the way. It's already waiting for you. This little pill right here can take over your life. And I found that out the hard way. Mission statement of this podcast basically highlights stories of people that I've met in my journey in recovery. One of my best friends in the world, this is my buddy Ernie. I love Ernie. I can't get enough Ernie. We met in treatment. I did his intake. I had been there longer than him. The treatment facility we were in, they make you a mentor just to basically make sure the person knows the rules of the facility. And the guy that was assigning the people that you would mentor would always give me the fucking hardest cases, like on purpose. Like, oh, I know he's going to fuck this one up. And so I petitioned. I said, man, this guy came in. I said, let me be his mentor because I think that he's gonna get this thing, right? I don't know what it was, whether I could tell like that you had enough or where you were at that time, and we maintained this friendship over the last 6.5 years. And I was just at your wedding last week, and I got to sit with your family. It was a pretty big deal. So really excited to have you on here. What's up, Ernie? Like, what's going on with Ernie today? Podcast is brought to you by our friend and realtor, Naomi Townsends with Keller Williams Property Teams. She'll help you in every step of the way, whether you're buying or selling a home, commercial property, mobile home, or even a vacant lot. In the last few years, she's helped hundreds of families buy their dream homes in the Central Valley, Bay Area, Monterey, and even the Sacramento area. Check her Zillow profile where she has a perfect 5-star ranking. She is also bilingual in Spanish. In 2021, she was in the national top 2 in her brokerage. Please, guys, check out her Instagram, Sold by Naomi, or reach out to her at 408-623-1414. All the links are in the bio. Remember, guys, support those who support us. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Sorensen's Ace Hardware, located at 402 Washington Avenue in Los Banos, proudly serving the community since 1947. Please check out our friend at Sorensen's for all your hardware needs. Come on, guys, support those who support us. Thanks, Sorensen's.
Life's good, all that. You just said we got married. I got married,
Right.
You got to meet my family. When I came in, when we first met, I thought you were somebody else. I thought you were an MMA fighter.
Sick.
Sick. And I thought you were Matt Hughes.
Fuck yeah.
And I was so out of it, when I got there, and I thought, man, that's Matt Hughes right there. Like that's crazy, right? And but I was hearing and seeing things that weren't there at the time. So sorry,
I'm not Matt Hughes, it turns out.
No, you weren't. You're not Matt Hughes, but I don't know him, and I know you.
Yeah,
you're
right.
much better than him. Yeah.
Thank you. That's hilarious. So, okay, so we always start off, man. What's your clean date, Ernie?
6/22/18.
6/20. And like, what does that mean to you? 'Cause I know it means a whole lot.
Yeah, that's everything to me. That's the start of a new beginning. That's the last time. That's the day after the last time I ever used. I knew that I was going to stay clean from there. I said I'm going to do everything differently now. And I got me a sponsor. I went to meetings. I did everything that I had heard over the years and years of going to different meetings, and never really gave it an honest shot. And on that day, I remember saying, okay, that's it. And I got on my hands and knees and prayed and asked for help. And it's been going pretty good ever since then. And every day is new. So it's like, that is the catalyst. That's the day that's all of this has equaled.
Yeah, because I mean, we're in your office, right?
I have an office.
And you have work trucks out there with your name on them.
I do.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome. Like, because the place that we went to treatment, like, we didn't go to Beverly Hills, right? Like, it wasn't like, oh, this is, and so anyways, because I'm not going to tell your story for you because I know a whole lot because we have this intimate friendship, right, that we built. And so, like, what did things look like for Ernie, like, growing up? Like, I mean, take it back as far as you want. Like, I mean,
Good question. Yeah. So Ernie growing up was wild and fun, and man, my earliest memory is a bad one. My earliest memory was me at like 3 years old. My mom and dad were fighting, and I remember being between them, holding my mom, like, as a little kid, looking up at my mom and hearing my mom between my mom and dad arguing and fighting, and that's the earliest memory I have as a kid. And then my next memory is racing dirt bikes.
Right.
I got a dirt bike. My dad bought me a dirt bike when I was like 4.5 for Christmas. And I remember that part. I remember getting the dirt bike, but there's a significant amount of time that I don't really remember. But, I was raised by outlaws.
right.
I was raised by guys that, and when I say guys, I had a stepdad too, and he's part of my story, I was fortunate enough to have a stepdad who took really good care of me. He did the best he could. Yeah. So I had a couple of good male figures in my life, but they taught me to be hardcore, man. No, you don't talk about anything that I might have seen. You don't punch them in the nose. Don't cry. Never let a man see you cry. Be a stand-up guy. Shake your hand. Just a lot of stuff that I think some people probably were raised that way too, but we were raised, like I said, in an outlaw environment. My dad was the president of a motorcycle club, and my stepdad was not a president, but he was high up in the outlaw world.
Yeah. So, like, all the things that you seen and remembered. I mean, there's some fond memories racing motorcycles and all this stuff, but you were taught at an early age, like, the complete opposite of what we learn later on in life. In our path of recovery, right? And I remember, like, knowing you, right, our first few months that we knew each other, but I only knew you so far,
Yeah.
right? Because you'd get so far with Ernie, and then it'd be like brick wall. Can't talk about it.
Yeah, don't speak, because I always felt like I was saying too much, like
Right.
like right now, right now I'm saying too much. So, but recovery's been good for me. It's given me the opportunity to deal with some of those issues and realize that. See, I always thought all families were like that.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought every family had millions of dollars of drug money and like hot rods in their garage and Harleys everywhere and boats, speedboats, and like we had actors at our house. Just all kinds of stuff that I thought everybody else did.
Right.
And come to find out, they didn't have that.
Yeah. No. And
I thought every household had a pound of weed in their closet with that already divvied up into sacks of quarters or eighths or whatever.
Right.
Like that was normal. I saw they had a tray with weed in it under the couch. You just pull the tray out and you would roll the weed up. They would roll the weed up, and I'm watching all this as a little kid. So
yeah, sample size of one, right?
just yeah, I seen a lot of things at an early age that I was told, like, don't never do drugs. Don't be doing drugs. Go grab me a beer.
Right. Sorensen's also has a Modesto location located at 1433 Coffee Road. Modesto, true value for all your hardware needs. For all of our people out in the Modesto area, please support those who support us. Thank you.
We need another lighter. Do you know what a lighter is? Yeah, I know where a lighter is. Go get it. So I'd go get the lighter and I'd come back because I always had a lighter.
Yeah.
At 5 years old, I got a lighter. because I probably stole it from one of them, you know.
Then where'd you get that lighter?
No, just
Right.
give me the lighter, you know.
And so like going, as a young kid, like this is what things look like. This is normal. Like I gotta imagine when you started like getting into school and coming around other kids, things didn't move along too smoothly, right? I mean, I don't know what that looks like. Going from having this at home and then here, like now you're going into like the normal stuff, which would be school and everything. Like, what does that look? Does Ernie fit in? I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, we were well off. We had stuff, you know. My parents made sure we didn't go without anything. They were, you know, doing what they were doing and making a good living at it. Cadillacs, you know, all that stuff. So, yeah, I didn't pay no mind to it. You know, seeing the cocaine out on the tables, I didn't pay no attention to it. That was normal to me.
Yeah.
You come home from school as an elementary kid and you see 10 motorcycles, all chopper Harleys, like out on the lawn and in the driveway, and there's hot rods out there. And you come into the house at 2 o'clock, or, you know, whenever elementary school gets out, which is early. You come into the house and there's smoke filled rooms with weed and cocaine everywhere, and the music's blaring, and there's 20 people in there partying, and, you know, biker stuff. And you know, I had things. I had bicycles. I had all the cool bicycles. I had toys. I had all the cool toys. We played sports. I had all the sports gear I needed. You know, whatever I was into. I had video games in my house. I had full-size video games before they had like Xbox and Atari. We had Atari back then. I had full-size arcade games in my house. So if I wanted to play video games, I'd just go open up the door on my arcade game and start playing video games there. But we played outside. I rode dirt bikes, we bicycles. We're all about racing motorcycles.
so I got to imagine it doesn't take you, long as like even a young adolescent teenager to start falling into this lifestyle, right? To start emulating these types of behaviors, right? I mean, I got to imagine that's where it begins for you as far as the unmanageability.
Yeah, so everybody's real friend, like real close friends, right? So those were my friends, my parents' friends, who they had associations with, whether they were selling drugs, but most of them were probably selling the drugs that they had, right? So I would be friends with their kids, because that's who we got to hang out with, right?
Got it.
So we would start doing things. I remember the first thing we really did. I can't remember the first. Me and I had a stepbrother too, and so he was like a few months older than me. I still have a stepbrother, I should say. But we got into all kinds of mischief, you know, doing that stuff. So yeah, I mean, 9 years old, you know, we broke into a house. Well, it wasn't a house; it was a trailer house. We lived in the mountains. We broke into a trailer house for no reason, just pry the door open and get in. We got in there and tore the place up, like tore it up, like, you know, just ransacked this place. And while we're taking all the stuff out of the cupboards, and we just happened to grab a big old bottle of E&J brandy, and we started drinking that. And next thing you know, we're hammered. Like, that brandy really hit me hard. And I don't remember anything after that, but I seen the damage afterwards, because we left.
Right.
We left and went home and didn't act like nothing was wrong. We lived on in the mountains. In the ranch we lived in, you could hide for hours. I don't remember anything after that, but I do remember, you know, my stepdad like, "Hey, you guys come here. Something's wrong over here. Somebody broke into this place, and it looks like you guys. You still our little footprints, you know." It's just that kind of stuff. So yeah, we got drunk. We did that several times. Not breaking into places, but getting drunk. I remember one time, me and my brother, we went to Mexico, and we got drunk down there. You know, we were little kids. Parents were all pissed off at us. There was fireworks and tequila bottles, and we were smoking cigarettes. Oh man, the cigarette thing at like 10 years old. In Mexico, we found somebody to buy some cigarettes.
Yeah.
In San Felipe. This was before San Felipe was a big resort town now, but this was a small community down there. And we got some cigarettes, and we started smoking cigarettes and drinking tequila, and passed out on the beach right there. And our mom and dad found us out there, just look, they've been drinking and smoking. So he said, "You guys want to smoke cigarettes and drink? Come on." Took us in the motorhome, right? Bought a pack of cigarettes, big old thing of Crown Royal. Start drinking, start smoking. And we did that, and it didn't last long. I mean, we were already hurt. It was not good. So we said, no, we won't do that no more. And then, I went and moved down to Fresno with my dad shortly after that. And then I started hanging out with one of my dad's friends who lived down the street from us. Same thing. He would steal the cigarette packs out of the back of his mom's cartons. She'd keep 2 or 3 cartons in the freezer. So he'd pull the cigarettes out of the back. Well, we went up in the tree, and we had a little hideout in the tree up and had a little wood box with all of our ashtrays and lighters and cigarette stuff. So we're up there smoking cigarettes up there, right? Little kids. Parents aren't checking on you, they're doing their own thing inside the house or whatever they're doing. Well, my dad's out there mowing the lawn one day, and the wind was blowing. It blew the box out of the tree. Just cigarette butts and everything everywhere, and packs of cigarettes and lighters. And, well, we're the only kids up in the tree.
Right.
So we got in trouble for that, yeah.
So it just, a lot of people think that addiction has to start behind some big trauma or something. For a lot of us, it was just fun, right? Until it wasn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably more so your experience is you started using at a young age because monkey see, monkey do, right? And then you start figuring out, well, we're having a good time here, right? And you're able to do all these things without certain repercussions. And
Yeah.
so does it just, from that point, does things just start steamrolling?
Yeah, the drugs and alcohol, I didn't like the drugs. I think the first time I tried cocaine, I found my brother and another buddy of ours, and they had my brother had an old film case. Used to get film in these little black cases.
I remember.
Yeah, so you get a little black case and had a little gray lid on it, and it'd be full of cocaine. Well, that's where he probably got it from. I don't know where he got it from, but I caught him up we had a big, beautiful tree house that was custom built. But stepdad built a big custom tree house. It's really, really, it was extravagant, right? Well, he's up there with a couple of his older buddies, and they're doing cocaine. But let me in. They're go away. Come on. He'd never let me in. He'd never not let me in, right? And
Right.
so now I want to get in there, right? So finally I get in there, and they're like, "Here, do this now. Now you have to do this." I'm like, "What is it?" And they're like, "It's just do it, right?" So there's a white powder and some lines on a tape case or something, or maybe a piece of marble. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember the first time I tried to do it, I didn't like inhale, suck it up through my nose with the straw. I blew it out. I went, so it blew it out everywhere, right? And they were like, "Oh no, you can't do it like that. That's not what you do, right?" So I was like, "Well, what do you do?" And so they made some more for me, and now you have to do it, right? There was like an initiation. So I finally got it up my nose, and I didn't like it. So after that, we kind of went our separate ways for a while because he was doing this stuff with his friends. So I started going different ways. But I like to drink. I didn't mind drinking some beer with my friends. And so that was something. We got a lot of adrenaline from racing motorcycles. So it wasn't really that big of a big thing until like 8th grade. Yeah, right about 8th grade is when it all started happening real fast. And I was going out with some older kids would come down. And the community we lived in the mountains was small, so and we knew a lot of these kids because they were in association with my stepdad, who was the man, the big guy, the boss. So everybody kind of knew who we were, and so they'd come pick us up, take us parties, cake parties in the mountains, and then pretty soon I was drinking every weekend. Well, parents said, "Hey, look, you can't be out. We don't want you out running around on the highway with these guys. If you guys are going to drink, you can come and drink on the ranch. Have bonfire, but nobody can leave. You guys got to stay, put a tent, whatever you got to do. But just stay here. Don't be driving up and down the highway and leaving our property drunk." So we did that. That was fine, right? It's like okay to drink on the property now. So we're getting kegs and doing that. And once I hit high school, I was drinking every weekend, sometimes every day. Back then, it was a little bit easier to get alcohol. For some reason, I looked older than I was. And the store, there was a little liquor store by my house called Mr. T's. Mr. T, he'd let me buy beer. So I'd go over there and I'd buy a tall can or a 12-pack or a couple of cases. He wouldn't sell me a keg. He would never sell me a keg. He'd let me buy a 12-pack, a couple of them sometimes. Back then they had 12-packs. They didn't have 18-packs. So that's where we would get our beer, And I found all kinds of friends that drink beer.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do. We find our kind pretty quickly. And
yeah. And down here, it wasn't hard to do.
Right.
Up there, it wasn't hard to do. And when I say up there, I mean the mountains where I was raised. Obviously, some people weren't really into. By the time I was a freshman in high school, it was already considered like one of the hardcore kids, right?
Yeah.
You're one of the hardcore kids. So some people were like, oh, we don't want a part of that. Smart kids.
Yeah.
But then there was us. We're like wild.
Well, and that it's funny because I remember being in school and I had a choice, right? I could have either went with these kids because I fit in over here, or I can go with these kids, right? And what was going on over there was real shiny to me, right? It took me a long time to figure out not everything that glitters is gold, right? And so that seemed to be the easy path, right? And so being labeled like, now that you're like one of the bad kids, right? Is that like a badge of honor at that point? So it's like that comes with a certain rule set, right?
It did, yeah. It started becoming apparent that people were starting to look at me a little bit differently. And now I had to hold this up. Then I have all the pressures at home with, getting a little older. They're starting to see me drinking a little bit. They found some weed a couple times. And they couldn't really say much because they're all smoking weed, it's a different time back then too. So, and being raised different, they're just like, okay, you got to keep it together.
Right.
We know you're doing it. Don't fuck up. So it's like, okay, I can do that. So then, now I'm moving it. Right now I'm in the mix. Probably already addicted to smoking weed and the lifestyle, right? The drinking, the partying, the prestige.
Yeah.
That's a high right there. That prestige. You're running around a school as a freshman, and you got seniors picking you up to take you to parties, and your girlfriend's a sophomore or junior. Like I had a couple sophomore and junior. They're all older than me. I was going to proms. I wasn't just a little freshman kid.
Well, in being raised the way you were raised, people probably knew like, oh, it came with a certain status, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then as a kid, that's probably, I'm sure there's a part of you that just wanted to be a kid.
I just want to be a kid. I just want to race dirt bikes. I worked, asked my stepdad, hey, what can I do for money for new dirt bike gear? I was all about that stuff, And I had this other life that I did because it was almost status quo. Like I had to do it, kind
Right.
of. I felt like this is what they were asked, like wanting me to do. Like I could see the build up to you're going to be this, you're going to be fine, you're going to take over family business or something to that effect. I don't know. No, they never said that to me, but they never busted me for anything, right? They never stopped me from doing it. They just said, don't get in trouble. And then when I finally did get in trouble, you know, my stepdad said, okay, I got in trouble at school selling weed. And my stepdad said, you know, that's it. Can't live here no more. You're bringing too much heat on me. And I was like, okay. So I went to court. I went to court in Bass Lake. And the judge said, hey, you got a father? And I said, yeah. He goes, okay, you got two choices. He goes, you can go live with your father and get out of my county, or you can go to juvenile hall. And I said, I'll go stay with my dad. Right.
And that's got to be like some sort of trauma too, because it's like, here I am doing everything that I was shown to do, right? And then you get in trouble for everything, and then you get shipped off.
You blew it. Yeah, you blew
Right.
it. Right. So now I'm like, oh man. So now here, you know, and by then I didn't realize that I had a drug problem,
Right.
but I did, and I know now that I did, because when I got down to stay with my dad, it was like I don't know how many months or weeks, but it was so fast that I found another connection.
Right.
And my dad was doing the same thing my stepdad was doing, right? So it was easily, I could find it there, you know? And that's just the way it was back then, you know? Back then, those times were different, and they did what they had to do. And I was doing everything I had to do.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know any better. Here I'm kicked out of the only place I know. I moved down to the big city with my dad. And, you know, bless his heart, but when I showed up there, you know, he was sitting on the lawn drinking beer with his friends.
Honestly, even though like everything was going on up on the mountain, you still kind of had some sort of nuclear family, right? Mom was there, stepdad was there, things were kind of normal. And then getting shot out to Fresno, now it's just your dad there. And guys live different when they're by themselves, right? So I mean, that's got to be a whole different.
Yeah, he was married, actually. He was married, but it was still, you know, that's just what it was.
Right.
You know, he was sitting out on the lawn drinking booze, no job, drinking with his friends, smoking weed, watering the lawn, laughing at everybody, you know, just that's just the way it was.
Kind of an outlaw type of, you know, not conforming to society's norms, right? And so this is
Nope.
once again, right? Like everything you're shown, sample size of one, this is all you know, but everybody just kind of does what they want.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, how does that look? You know, because now you're in high school and then and getting older. I mean, I got to imagine you just fall right in the line, right, and start doing those same type of things.
Yeah, I started doing all kinds of things. You know, down in this big city, there's a whole array of different personalities and people that you can hang out with. You know?
Right.
I finally ran into a few guys that are one of them's still my friend to this day. But we basically had our little crew, you know, we had a little crew, and it was on and cracking, you know. Got in trouble a couple more times, a lot of fights, a lot of fist fights, you know, at school, in the street. Now I'm running around beating people up because they owe me money. Just, you know, thug stuff.
So like life's getting by your standards today, life's getting pretty unmanageable, right?
It was out of control.
And so like looking at that, then at any time was there a point where you were clicking, like saying, "Man, maybe I got a problem here,"
No.
right? It just until so like what led you to the point to where you're like, "Man, something's got to give here. Like something has to change."
Yeah. So years and years and years went by. And then I turned 21, and I'd broken up with the girlfriend that I was with for all of my high school years. Once I left the mountain, I came down, I got a girlfriend, and she was with me the whole time. And, we did everything together. And we're going to get married and all these things. And once I turned 21, she wasn't 21 yet. So I had an apartment. I had an apartment at like 17 years old. And I had my own apartment, right? I parked my motorcycle inside the apartment. So when I left the mountain and moved down to here, I left the mountain on a motorcycle, a street bike, like a Honda Shadow. That was like a 650 Honda Shadow, and it had baby ape hangers and straight pipes. And I rode that back, and I rode that to high school until my uncle let me. There was a Harley in the garage, and it was.
You were like the Fonz.
Yeah, like exactly.
Right.
And so I always had a motorcycle, right? I always had one. So after I turned 21. She wasn't 21 yet. I broke up with her because I knew I was like, I'm going to be 21. I'm going to go to the bar. I'm a man now. Like, this is what men do. They go to the bar. You got a bike, I got a Harley right there. I'm going to the bar. I was already an electrician. I became an electrician when I was, I started working for an electrical outfit right out of high school because my dad was like, you can't live here without paying rent or you go to school. And I wasn't going to go to college. I was in the game, man. I was like, oh yeah, I'll get a job. So, obviously he hooked me up with a job with some of his friends doing electrical. And man, now I got a new way to fund my drugs,
Right.
my drinking.
I've hung out in houses. Whenever you're hanging out at a house and there's a motorcycle parked in the living room, it's usually not the best place to be hanging out, right? I'm sure there's some nice places.
Yeah.
But I remember one, it was funny, I seen the guy today, right? And I used to hang out at his house when I was in high school, and there was always a Harley in the living room, and there was nothing good happening at that house. Yeah. It's usually a key indicator that shit's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was all beer in the refrigerator and like an old 2-week pizza.
Yeah, that's about right.
That was how I lived for years. And then so just I got in trouble. I got in a DUI in 1998. And I had bought a Thunderbird, a 77 Thunderbird from what you guys would call a cartel guy now,
Sick.
It was connected, and it was gold. It had leather interior. And
That's real low profile.
It was immaculate. This 77 Thunderbird was immaculate. Air conditioner still worked. Everything was pristine. And I was like 21. He's like, for you. This car's for you. And so I got a DUI in it. Now I'm big time, right? Like I'm running around bars, got this big old car.
Well, and that's like the insanity, right? Like here I'm going to bars and I'm going to be going partying and drinking. So let's buy the loudest bright gold car to drive around in.
That's a mafia car. I mean, you could tell.
Yeah,
like,
right.
This thing was like, all the OGs were like, man, that's a nice car, kid.
So
you
there's
can hang out with us.
So there's like a lot of time there between because your partying or your using career went on from the time you were 10 until the time we met, right? And a little past that. But so in all this stuff, like if I'm thinking like when you're telling me these stories, like it's easy for me to fall in and be like, yeah, that's pretty cool, right? But like, what does that progress to? Like, where's the first time that Ernie's like, man, like something's got to give here, right? Like what put that desperation in your mind?
Losing the one I love over some stupid shit like getting drunk or getting loaded. I lost some relationships. Like I said, I got a DUI and then wasn't really in a relationship there, but I got 3 back to back. So I got one in May of 98, June of 98, and July of 2001. So no, May, June, and July of 98, and then a fourth one in 2001. So I was convicted of my second one before I was convicted of my first one because I was fighting all of them. And then I lost the car. I lost the job. Just those types of things I started seeing the pattern, like, man, and I remember when I got busted from school selling weed, my stepdad told me, you can't have you here, you're bringing too much heat. Well, that when I got to DUI, I thought, man, I'm a failure, right? I'm a failure. I can't do this. Now I got the heat on me. They're gonna think I'm talking to cops. Going to court already. So that's when I realized, man, I gotta do something here. But I was in so much denial that instead of stopping drinking and using, I just stopped like drinking as much. Right. Now instead, I'm going to go to the bar still because that's what men do. I'm going to go to the bar and I'm still going to have some weed on me. Still going to have some snortables, whatever it might be. But I'm just not going to like do as much. I'm going to just be cool about it and not get in trouble and go to work. And stay low for a little while. Let the dust blow over. So I get all out of trouble. And they automatically send you to meetings.
Right.
With the DUIs. So that was my first meeting, right? Like now I'm going to meetings,
And so what does Ernie look like at his first meeting?
Well, meetings were not for guys like me.
Right.
These things, this is where all the narcs hang out. This is where all the people I don't want to hang out with hang out, right? Like I don't want to be nowhere near these guys. They're probably all cops. I'm surely not going to share anything with them. And you get in there, right? And they're all talking about, they're praying and they're talking about just kind of, I don't drink no more. I'm so grateful and this and that. And I wasn't buying into none of that. It was like, gee, bullshit. That stuff don't work. That's not what outlaws do. Yeah, that's good for you. Just sign my paper. Okay.
Right.
And I'll go.
So all this while knowing you had a problem, being introduced to what later on would be the solution to your problem, but still trying to maintain this lifestyle all the way, right?
Yeah. So, believe it or not, I had to go to like 7 meetings a week for 90 days until I got back in front of the judge. Next thing you know, I'm at the bar. And it was just me and another guy, and I go, hey man, I see you in here every day. I go, you might have a drinking problem. He goes, what? He's an old cowboy, I go, man, and I'm already buzzed up, right? Like,
and you're in there every day too, obviously,
I'm buzzed
right?
up, yeah. And I'm like, man, I see you here every day, man. You doing okay? Because, you probably got a drinking problem. And some of the stuff that I was hearing in these meetings was starting to come out.
Right.
And finally, he looks at me. He goes, young man. He goes, we can have a conversation about anything you want, other than that, right? And I was like, okay. And then so another time I was at some friend's house, same thing. I got drunk and all this AA stuff started coming out, And finally, after about 4 or 5 times of that, they started telling me, hey, look, dude, you can drink with us, but if you start preaching that recovery and AA stuff, you can't stay here. Right? And I'm like, well, you guys got a problem. You're in denial. It's not just a river in Egypt. Never once like looking at myself, right?
Right.
What do they say? You point the finger, and you got 3 of them pointing back at you, right?
I used to always say 4 until I realized the fucking thumb's always up. Right. Well, and that's it, right? because I remember having the same process. I'd be selling drugs to guys, talking them into going to rehab, knowing that I'm doing twice as much as them because I know how much they're doing because I'm selling it to them. Right. One of those guys I sponsored today.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
But it's one of those things where it's way easier to fix the ones around you than to look inside.
Right. It's easier to tell somebody else what to do, what they should be doing, than to actually, do that.
Right.
So that happened. That ruined AA. Alcoholics Anonymous itself was probably the first one to ruin my drinking career.
Right.
Because every time I was getting drunk, I'd start talking this AA stuff, and I was not even about AA. I just happened to be there long enough because I got three DUIs in a row, and then they made me go to these classes. That's the only way to stay out of jail. It started setting in. Right. And I didn't tell none of the judge or nobody that I had a drug problem.
Right.
Like, they were sending me to AA, but I had like pounds of crank in my house, like I'm selling just gobs of this stuff, and I'm on it every single day. And so I thought, oh, let's go to AA then.
Right.
They'll never know.
Well, and so does that where it shifts? Is that from your drinking to your using careers? Like AA screws up the drinking, so now we're going to start using this other stuff.
AA ruined my drinking, and pretty soon the bartenders, because I was all friendly with all the bartenders, they were like, one day I told them, I got my 4th DUI, and I was like, dude, I can't believe I'm doing this again, right? I just got out of the 3rd DUI problems, and I only lasted a year and a half. I got a 4th DUI. So now I'm telling my bartenders, I don't drink alcohol no more. I'm only going to drink O'Doul's. And so my bartender was cool with it. She loved me, right? She's like, oh, yeah, cool. So she made sure she had plenty of O'Doul's, and that went for about 2 or 3 years. I'm drinking O'Doul's. No, 6 years. I take that back. And I was claiming in AA, never touching NA, by the way, going to AA, claiming I had years and years of recovery, drinking O'Doul's and still going to the bars and selling dope off, of the side of there, outside of the house.
So how'd that work out for you?
Well, obviously it doesn't work, right?
Right.
So, I left the program. I got out of trouble. I didn't have to go no more, so I quit going. And life was miraculously fine.
Right.
I started drinking again when I got married the first time. I'd been married one time before. And I started drinking on my bachelor party, and nothing bad happened. It didn't, you're going to wake up the sleeping lion and all these things that I heard in the AA meetings. None of that happened. I didn't lose my wife. I didn't go to jail. I didn't beat nobody up. Nobody was mad at me. I didn't lose my job. I didn't lose a car. 10 years I drank. 10 years I had a job. 10 years I bought a house. I was still moving drugs. My wife didn't know that I was still dabbling in that, because that's something, it was like ingrained in me to do this. And I was buying houses. I bought new trucks. I bought a new Harley. We did trips to all over the place. Sturgis 6 times. We did Disneyland. We had birthday parties there. All kinds of extravagant stuff that most people don't do with a day job, right? And a drug habit. So,
so life seemed manageable.
Yeah. And until, the last couple of years of that is when things started going downhill. I got a divorce, and a couple of years it took to get the divorce, but everybody could see that there was a problem at home, you know?
And then you ended up getting in trouble. You ended up, behind bars. And is that when you were offered a program? I mean, so I know there's a sequence of events that happened there, and I don't know if you want to share about some of those things. But really quick, things got unmanageable, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, we're married. Everything's good. Now we're getting divorced. Everything's bad,
right?
And real bad. And at that point, the last thing I was going to do is go to a meeting. Right. That's just, it's not me. Right? I'm not doing that shit. You know?
Right.
So I started hanging out with new people, and they were okay with the drinking. You know, they didn't know I had a drug problem. I changed up my drugs instead of doing a bunch of crank or meth, which is what it turned into. I just popped pills. I popped Norcos. I got hung up on Norcos from a doctor. I had a back problem, and he prescribed me a bunch of Norcos. Every 20 days, I can get 120 Norcos. So I moved into that, and then when the divorce came, I was fully strung out on pills. I mean, to where I had to have them, and I couldn't hardly function. I used the divorce as a reason to get really, really tore up. Drinking at work, like drinking all night, and then going to work hungover and smelling like booze. And my coworkers, you know, who are all electricians, and you know, they put up with a lot of. I was a member of a union. I'm a member of a union, and they took good care of me through that time. But man, I look back at it now, and that wasn't very awesome of me to do that to them, you know. And I worked on that part in my recovery, is, you know, making amends to them for that kind of stuff. But that's how I got through. Money was the problem. I'm in a union. I'm selling whatever I could sell for drugs to afford more drugs and afford more things. You know, people might tell you, "Hey, man, you're not looking so good. You can't be doing too good. You're getting drunk, going to work, doing that." I'd buy a new car, or I'd buy another house, or do something drastic like that. You know, and you can't tell me nothing. I got a brand new car. You know, I'm not that bad.
Right. All the outside stuff to cover up the inside stuff.
Yeah. And man, by then I'm out of control, dude. I mean, I can't. I'm hearing things. I'm seeing things. The neighborhood I lived in was riddled with methamphetamine, and I mean, it was just bad. It was everywhere, right? And so now I'm hanging out with other guys that are using that, and you know, all this drama that comes with that. And the whole time I knew this is not where I need to be. I'm in bad shape.
Yeah. Well, you already had those seeds planted, so now you're starting to realize this stuff that I'm doing.
I'm in bad shape.
Ain't working
I'm
anymore.
not talking to mom and dad much anymore. I'm not talking to some old friends that would normally be calling me out. I'm not, you know, I'm out there. I'm just out.
And so what ends up happening to get you back into, you know, recovery?
Right. Yeah. So it's always something bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was a catapult, and I got a domestic violence charge. I tried really hard not to, but the violence in the home after doing all the drugs, you know, was there, and we were, you know, hitting each other, all that, you know. So I had gotten we were me and the relationship I was in. She was pregnant, and she was having, because we were both in active addiction. I didn't know any of this part until later on, but we were both in active addiction, and you know, I didn't know that it was going to be that hard, that bad for her. And I was fighting addiction too, so I didn't even pay attention to any of that. Well, you know, I just assumed I'd just put it all on her, that she was crazy. So, long story short, you know, you get a DV charge, it's pretty bad, especially if she's pregnant, right? So I left the house, right? And we're at the end of the pregnancy, and I didn't want to fight with her anymore. It's like, we're in third trimester, no more fighting. If I'm the problem, I'm leaving, and I'm the problem too, right? Like, I'm part of that problem. So I left the house and went and stayed down the street. So I'm gonna go stay down the street with a friend of ours and I'm like a block away in case she needs anything. Well, I went down there, we got drunk, and I took a Valium. And next thing you know, I wake up and I'm sleeping on his couch, and I wake up and I'm getting punched in the face. And I stood up, because I'm not the guy that's going to lay there and get punched in the face, even on Valium, right? I'm coming up. So I came up, and when I came up, there's a coffee table right next to the couch that I'm sleeping on. She falls back over the coffee table. I grabbed her and I rolled onto the coffee table, and we rolled off the other side of it. And now she's on all fours and I'm up her back.
We're getting animated here.
Animated. I'm on the back of her. Okay. And the guy that I'm staying with comes out, and all he sees is me on top of her. So I let go.
Come a little closer.
Okay. I let go, and the cops come. She goes home. The cops come. They come down. They get us. And he tells his side of the story. All he saw was me on top of her, and I was. So I got a DV charge from that. She had bruises on her arm, and her knees and her elbows were bright red. I wasn't like punching on her and stuff, but that's enough. I mean, that's domestic violence.
Yeah.
And I got added charges because the baby in the womb, right? That's called capital. No, I can't remember what that's called. Corporal punishment. It's called corporal punishment because the baby was in the womb, couldn't defend himself. So I got extra time for that. So I went to jail, and now I'm in jail with a drug problem, and my whole world's collapsing.
Right.
And it's a felony, and it's just the worst of the worst, right? Like now I think I'm never gonna, I'm afraid of other men now because they're gonna want to beat me up because I have a DV charge. Because in my mind, that's probably something I would think,
Right.
Like, what do you mean you hit women? What? So, yeah, I'm in bad shape. Like I'm really, really in bad shape, and I'm seeing all these crazy things in jail, and I'm thinking, man, some drugs coming to the jail. All right.
Yeah. It's probably a lot easier at this point in your life to be high dealing with that shit than just
Nothing
sitting
to
through
worry
it.
about now.
Yeah. And because I mean, I know you, right? I've known you for long enough time to know who you are and what you're like, what your heart is like, right? And I know you. So I know that ain't you, right? But at that point, you probably don't even know you anymore.
No, I have no idea who I am, what I'm capable of, any of that stuff. It's all foreign. Like I don't even know. My thought processes were off. I was dealing with some depression because of what happened at the home. That's never supposed to happen. And then I'm angry, and I'm just all the emotions all in one. And then there's drugs, and I'm in there, and it's, I'm not a young man. I was, in my late 30s at the time. And these kids in that jailhouse, and they're young,
Yeah.
and they don't care. And I've seen a lot of ugly stuff in there. Nothing nice.
So is this like the pivot point to where you are really realizing in that moment, I don't even know if you can remember, but did you have the energy to be like, I'm going to change this? Or was it more like life is over?
I was in so much denial that I'm also pretty, mentally, I'm strong enough to deal with all that damage. Right. And I'm a survivor. So, I'm pretty proud of the trainings that I had as a kid, the dirt bike riding, all the ups and downs that got me to that point. I mean, I used everything that I had to just survive in there, and man, I did pretty good. So it's pretty scary to find yourself in there doing time with all this and actually
Thriving.
just fine.
Yeah.
Just do it, you know. And that, so I'm in full blown denial about all of this. So I get out. I've got a domestic violence charge, 10-year restraining order. What do?
Go straight to the house, probably.
Go straight home.
And so what does that look
She
like?
lets me stay for a little while, and then she turns me in. So I go back to jail. I get out. We're corresponding over paper. I go back. I steal my baby boy's born. Everything's good. I go back. I'm seeing my boy. I'm thinking it's going to change. You know, I can help her. I'm going to save her.
Right.
Right? We're going to change together. I'm going to fix my family. Go back. She gets pissed off one time. Calls. Says, hey, he's over here again. Boom. Go back in again. Another county year. So the third time, finally I told her, I said, no more. I said, I need you to go to court with me and tell the judge that we're peaceful contact, you know. And I'm going to my DV classes, all my anger management stuff. I'm doing all the stuff I need to do. Still fighting the drug problem, still sneaking around, still learning how to pass the drug tests and all that stuff. And she's like, yeah, no problem. I'll go. So I go to court the last time. And the judge says, you broke your restraining order again, didn't you? And I just looked at her and turned around and looked. She wasn't there. And I said, yes, Your Honor, I did. And I won't do it again. She goes, okay, 6 more months. She says, well, you've actually maxed out your time. You can't, I can't give you no more time. So you're going to go sit in there until we figure out a place for you. I said, Your Honor, I said, I also have a drug problem. She says, you do? I said, yes, I've been drinking and using drugs. She goes, okay. So she put me in there, and about 3 weeks later, she calls me down from court. And I knew that my ex she didn't show up, which means she's not going to help me get peaceful contact so I can see my kid. Now I'm floating on the whole, I got to see my kid, my family, my kid. I got to do everything for my child, right? And that's gone, just like that. And when I brought it up to the judge, she said, Mr. Moreno, you're lucky to have the clothes you have on your back. You need to stay away from him, the kids, her, everybody. I said, okay. And I did. And I haven't seen them. I don't get to visit with my son. That's, none of that. I don't speak her name. I gave it up to God.
Yeah.
I gave that part up to God. In recovery, you don't get everything back.
No.
It was tough. It took 2 years for me to figure out how that works. So in the meantime, I'm in jail. They offered me a drug program. I took it, and I went. And this is my higher power is so interesting that nothing ever works out like it's supposed to, right? He's always got a plan for me to do something, and then I can get here. So I'm supposed to take the car ride from the jailhouse in Fresno, California, up to the rehab. And all of my stuff is in, I had a big suitcase is all I had. I had it strapped to the front of my motorcycle, and I had no home. I was riding around my motorcycle, staying on couches when I finally got popped the last time. So I went, I told the lady that was going to transport me to the rehab that got me out of jail, she's a probation officer. I said, I'm going to go over here to the police department and get my stuff. It's in evidence lockup. She goes, well, my car's this way, so you better be in that car before it leaves. I said, okay. So I got this stuff out of evidence lockup, and she left me. Now I'm absconding. So I call my aunt, and I had my aunt come get me. And I told my aunt the whole story. I said, I'm going to a drug rehab. I just need you to give me a place to stay tonight and get me to the rehab, right? And so the reason why I wanted to go back and get my stuff so bad is I had a little bit of dope left in my bag.
And that lady that was supposed to drive you probably knew that. It wasn't her first time around the block, right? Yeah. And so you show up the next day, right? And I remember you walking in, but like in your mindset, you know, you were out of your mind, right? Did you think that this is the answer to my problems here? This is where I'm going to change?
No,
You weren't ready to receive the help yet.
I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew I wasn't in jail anymore, and I wasn't in the same town, and I'm gonna give this thing a shot.
Right.
And they sat me down in the chapel, and I thought, oh no. It's a big chapel, big cross up there, you know, and I'm just thinking, golly, not that, right? What did I do?
And it's all that for 6 months. It's all that. So, I mean, like what's going on with you during this time? Because I mean, it's not a 30-day facility. It's not a 60-day. It's not it's a 6-month program, right?
Yeah. So what's going on with me is I'm in survival mode.
Right.
I'm in defensive survival mode, and I'm crazier than I'm Looney Tunes. You know, when you saw me, when I met you, they sent me up to Brisbane to a place called the Jericho Project, and I only made it there a week, but I had long hair, you know, like Jim Morrison, you know. They shaved my head off. They shaved my hair off, you know, and I hated that. That was an act of war to me. So when I got over there, I was short hair, you know, and probably skinny. I don't really remember.
Yeah, you're pretty thin.
Yeah, jail food's not good.
Yeah. And so you do your 6 months there, and you know, and I remember your completion. I was there through the whole process. I came back and I watched you complete that program. And so coming out of that treatment facility, you're clean. You got about 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what does things look like for you?
Yeah. So in the treatment facility, I really dove in. Once I realized, man, this could be the opportunity that I need to get back on my feet.
You sure acted like you knew recovery.
I dove in. Well, I'd been in and out of AA for years.
Right.
I knew that if I got to do, I just go to AA. I start doing my AA right now.
Yeah.
Before I even get to court, right? Show up to court with 30 signatures. Just, oh, good job. Okay, now go do 7 a week for the next 50 weeks.
Yeah.
So I had that one down. So when I got there, it was like, yeah, you know, and then, in jail, I was so wasted in jail. I was doing my steps high on methamphetamine in the jail.
Those are probably pretty interesting.
People were like, what are you doing? You know, they just watched me use, and there I am, got the AA book up. I'm actually, I registered a meeting in the jailhouse, Pod C, and they sent me a packet to start a meeting in there. And I had like 5 or 6 people showing up.
You were high on meth the whole time. That's wild.
Yeah.
And so you took that. So at any time, like, cause I remember you working your program and you had all this knowledge prior. Is this stuff actually seeping in at that point? Or is it something you regurgitate because you know how to program, you know how to do time, you know how to do these things?
I'd love to say yes. You know, of course it is. Once the seed's planted,
Yeah.
it takes its own root, you know. All of it equals recovery for me today, you know.
Right.
Obviously, AA did the trick for what it needed to be. Narcotics Anonymous happened to be the one that actually took care of all of the symptoms that I needed to take care of, realizing that, you know, alcohol is a drug too.
Right.
So, and that helped me a lot because I was trying to deal with my issues. I just want to do coke. So I just I remember saying, "Oh, I'm not going to drink no more. I'm just going to smoke weed." You know, and then I'm not going to. I'm just going to pop pills.
When it talks about that exact thing in our literature, right? So I got to imagine right when you bust into that, it's just pinpointing you.
Oh man, just lights are going off. Oh my God, this, that.
Right.
Wow, wow. They know. It's like they know. Put the book down.
So I mean, what does it look like for you coming out of that 6-month program?
Well, I'm all healthy, and I have a great bunch of friends now in this new town. Um, we're going to meetings. I got a network of people that are in recovery, and I come back to Fresno, and I start living with my mom, and I'm up in the mountains, not real high in the mountains, but I'm up there, and I'm just kind of taking it real easy, and I got a job, and that was great. I'm thinking straight. I got me a job, and got me a truck. So I got to have a truck because I got to go to work. And then next thing you know, I'm drinking again. And nobody knows. And nobody's telling me. Well, my mom knew. And then, but it didn't take long before I went and scored again.
Right.
And that I didn't tell nobody because I'm totally like embarrassed about it. Like I gotta hide it. I don't want nobody to know. Everybody else knows that I just went through rehab. I don't want nobody to know that I'm using again or drinking. So now I'm doing it in my truck in the middle of nowhere, just isolated in my truck. I don't even want to go home because I just don't want to be anywhere where people can see me. And then I moved away from there. I moved away from my mom's because I wanted to, drink and use. So, I got another DUI.
Nice.
This time a truck driver's DUI, so I was high on methamphetamine, right?
The truck driver's DUI.
Yeah. So I got that DUI, and I fought that, and then I thought I got away with it because it took Madera County a long time to actually file the charges. So long that by the time I got the DUI, I found myself in jail. Now I'm really beating myself up. Like, you are done. Now you got to change. So I moved and I went to where I knew I would be safe. I went back up to the mountains and I stayed with my brother there, and I found out that there was a meeting there. I called a guy that I know who was in another city, and he was doing all these great things with AA. And I called him and I'm like, "Hey, I need a meeting." And he's like, "Don't you have the app?" I'm like, No, find me a meeting, He's like, "Okay." Boom, he shoots me a meeting. Just happens to be like less than a quarter mile away from my house. Like I can walk up the road to this meeting, right? So that's really where it was at. So I started going there, and then pretty soon he knows I'm getting loaded and drunk, and so he's not answering my calls anymore. But you did. I called you several times.
I remember.
To Fresno, and I start living with my mom, and I'm up in the mountains. I'm not real high in the mountains, but I'm up there, and I'm just kind of taking it real easy. And I got a job, and that was great. I'm thinking straight. I got me a job, and got me a truck. I gotta have a truck. I gotta go to work. And then next thing you know, I'm drinking again. And nobody knows. And nobody's telling me. Well, my mom knew. And then, but it didn't take long before I went and scored again.
Right.
And that I didn't tell nobody because I'm totally like embarrassed about it. Like I gotta hide it. I don't want nobody to know. Everybody else knows that I just went through rehab. I don't want nobody to know that I'm using again or drinking. So now I'm doing it in my truck in the middle of nowhere, just isolated in my truck. I don't even want to go home because I just don't want to be anywhere where people can see me. And then I moved away from there. I moved away from my mom's because I wanted to, drink and use. So, I got another DUI.
Nice.
This time a truck driver's DUI, so I was high on methamphetamine. Right?
The truck driver's DUI.
Yeah. So I got that DUI, and I fought that, and then I thought I got away with it because it took Madera County a long time to actually file the charges. So long that by the time I got the DUI, I found myself in jail. Now I'm really beating myself up. Like, you are done. Now you got to change. So I moved and I went to where I knew I would be safe. I went back up to the mountains and I stayed with my brother there, and I found out that there was a meeting there. I called a guy that I know who was in another city, and he was doing all these great things for AA. And I called him and I'm like, hey, I need a meeting. And he's like, don't you have the app? I'm like, no, find me a meeting, He's like, okay, boom, he shoots me a meeting. Just happens to be like less than a quarter mile away from my house. Like, I can walk up the road to this meeting, right? So that's really where it was at. So I started going there, and then pretty soon he knows I'm getting loaded and drunk, and so he's not answering my calls anymore. But you did. I called you several times.
I remember those calls vividly.
Yeah, and I was battling, what to do and how to do this, and I didn't want to go in the rooms because, man, I just don't want to do the program. I'm just in denial, not willing. And so I decided, okay, you got to go.
And I remember that shift in you because it wasn't a subtle shift. Right, like we had some phone conversations and pretty wild shit was going on in the background, right? I remember one in particular. You're walking down Highway 41 or something. And it was like, Ernie, where are you at? Because I just hear pieces of whoom, like you'd be ranting and whoom, and then a couple more happen at nighttime. So much so, I had my car ready to go to come pick you up and drive you to Stockton, right? Yep. And there was this shift that happened in you to where you didn't like say, okay, I might get back involved in a 12-step fellowship. You jumped into a 12-step fellowship.
I did.
And it's crazy how this thing works, right? Because you poured yourself into that program so hard. And it's funny, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and we can go back to your early recovery this time. But I pulled your cover so hard, right? And this is how this thing works. 4 years later, I'm in a complacent state of recovery, and who comes back and pulls my covers, right? Right? And that's how this thing works, right? And that's why I value this friendship. Like, this is, honestly, like you mean more to me than most anybody in this world, right? And this friendship has been bonded through both of us, some pretty good times and some pretty fucking bad times, right? And every time I call you, you answer the phone. Every time you call me, I try to answer the phone, or we get back to each other very quickly thereafter, right?
Yeah.
And so like once you put yourself in this, because I know that the next time I was privileged enough to visit the fellowship that you were involved in, like you were doing it, right? Like, I mean, what did that look like for you the last time you jumped into recovery, and you're still in recovery, obviously?
Yeah. So I remember the phone call was like, okay, I'm coming to get you right now. And I'm like, no. You don't come. I'm going to go straight to the meeting right now. No, I'm coming to get you. And I'm like, no, I got this. Trust me, I got this. I'm going to go to a meeting. It's going to be fine. All right, fine. Well, I'll check on you, right? And then I just went to the meeting, and I kept going every day. I stopped doing everything else. And I remember still all the stuff that happened in Stockton the first time. It's all those people in there and hearing all those stories and watching them fellowship and their friends, and they were taking me to their houses and we were watching football games, and my first couple of the sober dances, and We went to football games, nobody drank. We went and had coffee, we went around town, they'd give us rides back to the rehab center, all these things. And I just thought, man, I'm gonna find that there at the meeting, at the fellowship up there where I was at in Oakhurst. And it was like there was one guy sitting in there at the table the first time I went. And I was like, all right, I sit down. And then we had our little meeting, and it was great. And then I thought, it needs help. And there I am again. I'm gonna help, right? Like I'm gonna show up, and I know how to do I know how to do NA. I know how to do recovery. Let's do this, right? So I start going every time it's open, and then I started going to the AA meetings too, because there was a lot of those up there. So I started going to those, and now I'm hitting 2 or 3 a day, and still staying away from people though. Like I didn't want to be. I still had that trust thing.
Right.
I didn't want to be too close. I didn't want them to know too much. Took a while for that to chip away, but I got myself a sponsor. You know, I started going to meetings, lots of them, all that I could get to. That's all I did for 2 years. So I went to meetings, I went home, I slept. And I went to meetings, went home, slept. Got up, went to another meeting, came home, slept. And then got me a sponsor, started working steps, taking care of all the business, and I started going. Because I know the way around the DOI. I went and got myself into Kingsview for the SB 38 driver's license stuff, and I'm already in that. I got 18 months of clean time, and I gotta go to court. Right now they're going to charge me with a DUI. So I get to court, and I'm 18 months in. I was a chairperson and GSR. Like I'm doing the Fresno trip for area, and we're going to conventions. And I'm trying to rally all the people up there, to just be part of this thing, Help me, help you, right? Like I need the help, but I need you guys to help me. I need you guys here at the tables when I'm here too. Like that's what this is, and it's working.
Yeah,
it was working.
Well, you were on fire.
Yeah. I was. It was great. It's wonderful. The best thing that I could have done, and life gets better.
Right.
Things start happening. Doors start opening. Now they're giving me jobs. They found out I'm an electrician, so now I got people in recovery. Like, hey, we need some stuff done. Can you come by and help us out? Yeah. Like next thing you know, I'm making money. I bought myself another car. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, I'm a career electrician. How am I going to do as an electrician? Because the electrical money that I made was part of my problem. It afforded me to get loaded all the time, and it's I had to change everything. So I don't play guitar anymore because I realized that I only play guitar when I'm drunk and loaded. I tried to play guitar when I was in recovery, didn't work out. So I gave that back to a friend of mine who let me borrow a guitar. And he's a really good guitar player. He's got a band, all kinds of stuff. It's great, right? And I gave it back, and it's not for me. There was a lot of things that I wasn't worried about. Am I going to be able to do these same things? And a lot of them I don't do. And then there's some that I still do. So after I did the GSR thing, did all kinds of stuff, did the meeting thing, I got me a motorcycle. I'm a motorcycle guy. That's it's gonna happen. And I thought, man, I don't need a motorcycle because motorcycle is also another thing that's going to get me drunk and loaded again. So what do? I waited, and then had a bunch of money stacked up. When you're in recovery and you're just going to and from work, and you're eating the good food, and man, I had a lot of money, right? Got some money now. So I got some money saved up, and motorcycle came up, nice little used Harley, bought me an electric glide. Just happened to have the right amount of money. Bam, took my sponsor with me. We went and bought my Harley. And I just continued going to meetings. I thought the motorcycle would be just for me to leave the house in the mountains and go to meetings wherever. Met some guys in recovery that are also motorcycle enthusiasts. And then I met my wife.
And it's so amazing because the amount of effort you put into that program, right? It's showing today because your life is like coming into full bloom.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And it didn't take, and I know like you talked about, like there's still things that haven't come back, right? In God's time, right? But the things that are happening for you today are pretty amazing in this short amount of time, right? Like I was just at your wedding last week. It was beautiful, right?
Thank you.
Like me and Brandy were trying to figure out where to sit, right? We're walking around, and then we find our names right at the front table, right? I'm sitting with your parents and your sister, and I know they're like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Right? But it was awesome. Like, and I, to be honest with you, I don't like going to weddings, right? But I was excited to go to your wedding, right? Because we've been on this journey together, right? And I've got to watch you do these amazing things, right? I always tell you, I'm a big Ernie fan, right? I'm a big Ernie fan. And so I was excited. And I'm excited for you, like, every step of the way. So, like, what's going on with you? That you just got married to an amazing woman.
I just got married. And we're building a business. I decided to build a business from the ground up. I went back to work. I chased her recovery. Like she was like, all right, another one of you guys, right? And then, but I was up front with her. I'm like, look, I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. She said, so there's going to be times that I need to go to meetings, or there's going to be times where I have to have conversations with certain people, and I need you to understand that I need to go to the meetings. I need to go to meetings, and I need to stick with the fellowship. And she's like, that's fine. Okay. And she started, she went to Al-Anon, like on her own. And I was like, oh, great. Here we go. And she's just trying to learn what it's like to be in a relationship with a recovering drug addict and alcoholic who's taking on the world, one day at a time. It was pretty risky, like I moved, I got with her knowing that I was like, I just knew, like, that's the one. That's the one I want to be with. That's the one. I like everything about her. And she's supportive of all the things that I want to do. And so, and the company thing was a plan, right? Like I said, I'm going to start my own company. It's time. And, my dad did say, he goes, well, you've been talking about this for a long, long time. And I just finally said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I know enough people in the program that they can help me.
Right.
And, it's proof. It's proof that the program works. If you go to these meetings and fellowship and network and get to know people, anything you're going through in life, somebody in that meeting, somebody in those rooms has gone through it or is going through the same thing. And man, so many great things that came from that. And we have a business now. Like you said in the intro, I got work trucks. I've had big jobs, small jobs, and I did enough meetings in the beginning of my recovery, which was also part of the plan. The first few years, because I knew that I was going to start a business. It's something I wanted to do, something I've always wanted to do. And so I got prepared for that. Like, we're going to change everything. We're not going to do the old outlaw lifestyle no more. We're going to go legit. I'm going to break the trend. And if it all works out, then in God's time, when I do get to see my son, he'll have a good place to go. He'll have a nice place to live. They'll have, be financially stable, as will I. And, we can build a relationship from there.
Yeah.
And this is the company thing is great because my wife also works for the company now. And, man, it's a blessing because she's fully supportive. She knows she does great work. She's really active. Like, she's, HR stuff. She's learning all that. She's doing all the things that needs to be done to be the office manager of the company. And I'm out there trying to run a company and install, which, employment's a little bit difficult sometimes. Business has its ups and downs. It's not all glory all the time.
And and your wife left a good career.
Yeah.
To jump in with you, right? So, like, what does that mean to you to have somebody put all that trust in you?
Well, it's definitely proof that recovery's working, and it's coming, it's showing, right? People see that. They're it's obviously not my doing.
Right.
All I'm doing is what God's given me. He's basically guiding me through all of this. I get to make some small decisions, but most of this is all him. Today I worked. God put something out there for me. I had to go put some. The power pole fell down off of a dentist's office on Friday. And it just rusted apart, fell off. So now the dentist's office doesn't have power, right? So we went and put the power back up. Now, whether we did our job, right?
Yeah.
And that's what God needed me to do today. He needed me to go do this. I got it done, and I'm here today. I'm here now with you. He's just taking all that. He brought her in. We've got a full life, at home, and it's great. We make time for all of it. Nobody's coming home hungover. Nobody's yelling and screaming in the house. There's no violence. I'm the one that's like usually upset about something, and she's the one usually telling me, "Okay, it'll be okay."
Yeah.
Or gives me the space to just be upset. Like, I have to deal with those things. Because and then I'll call my sponsor, or I'll call you, or I'll call somebody, and then next thing you know, I'm done. And she's like, "Okay, you're done with that now."
You put that down now.
Yeah. How long are you gonna carry that around?
And I got to see something pretty cool too, right? Like, so last week at your wedding, April surprised you, and your son came back from the Marine Corps to come bear witness, and he got up and took the microphone, and he got to talk about how proud of you he is, right?
Yeah.
And he's old enough to know.
Oh yeah.
Like, what do moments like that mean to you now in recovery? Getting to view that through clear eyes.
That's what it is. That's what recovery to me is. That moment.
Right.
That was another key moment in my recovery, to know that I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
And no matter how difficult it is, all the things that I deal with on a daily basis as a recovering addict. They put up with it. He sees how far I've come, and for him to acknowledge that was amazing. Our relationship was pretty beat up prior to him going to the Marines, and he's told me that he sees a big change, and that's what I want. I want him to know that it wasn't all in vain. I just didn't have control of a lot of different things, and did the best I could. And we'll work on it one day at a time from here.
Yeah. Well, we have to go through what we have to go through to be where we're at, right?
Yeah, it gives him hope too. I want him to see that no matter what he goes through, if I can do it, so can you.
Right.
I'm not special by no means. I'm no better than anybody else. I just work hard at recovery. I take it seriously, and I let God handle most of it.
And what's funny too is like I can tell you the first time that I met April was over a phone call, right? And before April, I would always worry about you, right? And like anytime I'm in the area, I call. Like you've done zoo trips with me and my kids, right? We've done concerts together. You've done hikes with my family, right? Like my kids call you Uncle Ernie, right? And I remember calling you, and I'm like, "What's up, dude? What are you doing?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm in bed with my new girlfriend." And I'm like, "Well, she better treat you nice, right?" Because I remember the one before that.
Yeah.
And she snapped back at me. She's like, "He better treat me nice." And I'm like, "Oh, he's got somebody that's good for him." I don't have to worry about my friend anymore, right? And man, I'm just so grateful for you guys, right? For you, for her, for your relationship, for your guys' relationship with my family. I mean, you were at my daughter's birthday party. But like before we wrap this thing, if somebody's out there listening to this, right, and they're hearing this and whatever phase they're in their addiction or in that denial phase, right, like what would you tell somebody that might be out there struggling with addiction? What would you tell somebody like that, Ernie?
Man, I would tell them, hang in there, get to a meeting, and go to all of them. Go to as many as you can. Stay there. Don't leave. And when you're ready, share. Tell somebody what's happening. Tell somebody what you're going through right at the time, no matter what it is. Talk to somebody in recovery. If you need to get a hold of me, call me. My phone's always on. Just don't use.
Right.
Don't use. If you can do it for 24 hours, you know how to do it.
Right. That's awesome. Ernie, I love you, man. Thank you. It feels weird sitting this close to you, staring at you without telling a dick joke for over an hour. But man, thank you for doing this. You owe me a hug. Let's see if we can get behind this thing. Oh, thank you, man.